let's just talk about practice. Because I do think that the thing that will help the most on the journey is if you can sit down and do this stuff for yourself, every day or most days. It's a lot like working out. Once a week is better than nothing, but it's going to be the cumulative, consistent effort that makes the biggest kinds of changes. And so, okay, so you want to start a daily practice. What should that practice consist of? When should you do it? How long should you do it for? Well, you have to answer those questions. I guess that's going to be mostly what I have to say in this video is that there's no one size fits all solution. And I think that you should feel very free to design your own practice around your own goals, and your own needs and your own constraints. These techniques come from spiritual traditions. My training is in, I shouldn't even call it training. My experience is in like Buddhism, and then like yoga, Vedanta, Tantra, that side of things. And even just in those two areas, well, I guess I named more than two. Let's say Buddhism. Let's say that my experience is in Vipassana and yoga. Even in just those two systems, we have some pretty esoteric goals. In Theravada, Vipassana style Buddhism, we're trying to develop the necessary conditions for a person, for the practitioner to realize that the mind that they've always identified with, that they view as themselves, is actually a very complex system of impermanent sensation, that there really is no self. And then when you realize there's no self, then there's no one there to suffer. That's kind of the premise. And then in yoga, it's more like there's this whole system of getting the body's like energies. So they have this idea of chakras and nadis. If you can get it all working in the optimal way, then you'll be able to meditate right. And when you can meditate right, you can get to this state called samadhi. And samadhi is like total stillness. And when samadhi happens, you'll see your true nature. And in their conception would be that you're like the Atman, the pure consciousness, something like that. And like, okay, cool. And I think that if you are able to realize no self or enter a state of samadhi, like that's going to be pretty dope. And I totally want that for you. But I don't know if that's really why I do any of this stuff. I was in a place where I was just doing pretty bad. I didn't feel good. And I didn't want, it seemed like I kept making really bad decisions, and I didn't want to suffer so much. And I happened to be in a place where there were a lot of monasteries, and I thought, well, maybe I'll go talk to these Buddhists and see what they have to say about things. And since then, my journey has taken me through a lot of Buddhist stuff, and then when I started having interesting like energetic phenomenon happening with me, I was like, well, I gotta see maybe what somebody else has to say about this stuff. And so I ended up hanging out with people in more of a yogic context, and then also some tantric people, and then just some straight up breathwork hippies, and I've learned a lot from all of those things. And I feel at this point very free to kind of do what I want. Like when I sit down to practice, usually it's like a half an hour. It's very intuitive for me. It's very, what do I need right now? What does my body want? And I think it's okay for anybody to approach it that way. Especially if your goals like aren't the goals of the original traditions. You know, if you really want to get to the place that Theravada Buddhism says you can get to, maybe you should strictly follow a Theravada tradition. Or if you really want to get to whatever tradition says you can get to whatever place, if you have that goal, then maybe you should follow like their map. But if what you want is to kind of take these practices and adapt them to your own life and have maybe a kinder relationship with your own mind, and maybe have a nervous system that is more grounded and centered, and maybe have like a greater capacity for joy and creativity, then you kind of have to figure out which practices help you the most. All right. So with all that said, let me just give you like the basic things that I can recommend. So first, let's talk about like your posture. So as you see, I'm sitting here. I've got this meditation cushion thing, um, and this is basically what I've figured out is like very comfortable for me. But this is also after a lot of time in this posture. I did a couple of retreats where it was like very mandatory to sit with your back straight. Um, and so, like, if you do it for a long time, the muscles will grow. I remember sitting this way and it hurt. And so I think that, like, you know, you kind of have to decide, do I want to develop those muscles? Or do I just want benefit today? Because there's reasons for wanting to sit with your back straight in meditation. So in the Buddhist approach to things, the primary notion is just like you need to be comfortable, but you also need to be alert. And so something like laying down or, you know, sitting in a chair uh, is going to just make you like sleepier, and maybe sleepier isn't good. And then in yogic approach to things, you know, they like the straight back because they want to line up the energetic system and get things working right. And uh, they would, you know, the body is really a core part of it. That's why you have all these like asanas and stuff, right? So, you know, they don't think that like slouched is the best way to do spiritual practice. And so to that I say, yeah, it's a good idea. It's a good idea to sit with a straight back. But if that's like a hindrance for you, then don't do that. You know, if like if you need to do this practice laying in bed, if you need to do your practices sitting on a chair, then do that. You know. Um, what else? Well, what are you gonna do? So I think that depends largely on what you're trying to accomplish. If your main goal is I just want to like feel better right now, like I'm anxious, right? If you're anxious, you need to soothe your nervous system. You need to activate your parasympathetic nervous system, the part of you that sends the signals to the brain that everything's chill and you're safe and you're allowed to be calm. So if that's what you want, then I think a great way to do it would be to like put on a little bit of chill music, nothing with words, right? Just something that just kind of sets the stage, something calming. You can just type in like meditation music, or there's this artist I like called East Forest. You can look him up. Just get some chill music going, and then just do some simple breathing. You could do a technique called coherence breathing, where you're breathing in for 6 seconds through the nose, and then breathing out for 6 seconds through the nose. Or you could do box breathing, which if you come to the class, we pretty much always do box breathing. I really like box breathing, and you just fill up the breath box all the way up, fill up the chest and the shoulders, and then hold and release. Hold again at the bottom. And just do that for a while. You can do it with counting. I think 8 seconds by 8 seconds by 8 seconds by 8 seconds is good. But I think with all of this stuff, it's better to get to a place where it's intuitive, where you're just filling up the lungs, and then you hold, and then release, and then hold, and you're just feeling the whole time. You'll know when it's time to do the next thing, right? You're just vibing with your breath. If what you want is to develop your relationship with your mind and your thoughts and to start to gain some insight into your nature as a human being, then I think that a more Buddhist approach is a great idea. So maybe kill the music. Maybe sit there and notice the breath as it comes in through your nose. And just follow the sensation as it goes down into your chest, maybe into your stomach. And we're not, while we're doing this kind of practice, manipulating the breath. We're just breathing naturally and we're just noticing. That can be a little tricky. I think that if you notice, like, oh, wow, I don't think I can breathe and notice my breathing without controlling the breathing. All right, then control your breathing. But you're not necessarily trying to breathe in deeply. It's just normal breathing. And what you want to be doing there is you're trying to stay in the place of feeling rather than the place of thinking. So if you do notice, like, oh, I'm thinking now, I'm having some thoughts about how I'm looking right now at the window, and there's a bunch of snow on my car. I'm gonna have to like clean the snow off my car. So you're thinking like, oh, I gotta go out. It's gonna be cold. I'm gonna have to clean and the roads are gonna be bad, and blah blah blah. Whatever the narrative starts, right? Well, then you very gently say to the mind, like, oh, no, that's not what we're doing. We're just noticing the feelings in the body. And then you gently go back to feeling the feelings in the body. And that's really it. Like so much of it, this stuff is stuff we can't really talk about. Like, and you'll start to notice that, like, oh wow, like my mind is just like thinking all these crazy thoughts all the time. There's nothing I can do to stop it. And that's the beginning of it. I think that there can be the tendency to think like, oh, I'm bad at this. Oh, I can't. I've heard so many people say, oh, I can't meditate. I just can't do it because I can't get my mind to shut off. Like, well, welcome to the club of people who can't get their minds to shut off. I've experienced a very still mind, but in the context of like a meditation retreat where I've been doing nothing but meditation every day for many days in a row. Yeah, I'm not surprised your mind doesn't just shut off. I'm not surprised you're not the Michael Jordan of meditation. Um, just beginning to notice the relationship between the like awareness part and the thinking part and the feeling part and the tension and the pain and just getting into that world. Like that's the practice. Like that's there's so much I could say about it, but it's just getting into that world a little bit. And I think that regardless of whether you're doing breathing practice or a meditation practice or an asana practice, you can be moving your body around. The notion is that the system that is us is like naturally meant to be in alignment with itself, and it's naturally pretty good and pretty wise. And all it really needs is for you to get out of the way. If you can just provide some stillness to the system, then the system will kind of naturally like loosen and like untangle itself, and you'll get up and you'll feel like, oh, I feel better now, you know. Um, that's the really hopeful thing about these practices, is that the idea is that we're kind of constantly causing ourselves suffering. So if we can just kind of stop doing that, things will get better like all on their own. It's not that we have to like perform some kind of complex surgery on ourselves. So yeah, those are a couple of different approaches that you can take. Um, like I said, you can work some movement in, some yoga asanas are cool. I think maybe a really underrated practice is like dancing. Um, Literally just like putting on some music that you like and just like shaking your ass. Uh, I mean, there's a reason that people like to do that. You know, like we're energizing. Like I feel like maybe you could almost say there's like three different goals that you could have outside of like the big spiritual goals. One of them would be like changing your relationship to your own thinking mind, and then another one would be like soothing, um, helping to make the body feel safe so that you're not experiencing so much anxiety. And then the other one is like coming out of depression. Like we want to feel robust and playful and powerful. And so something like dancing or some kind of like intense breathing exercises, like you could just do conscious connected breath work, which is just continuous deep breathing. So it's something like maybe you would do 10 breaths or something, and then you could hold and feel all this new life and new power rushing into the body. Um, yeah, so as far as I can tell, those are the ingredients. You got to make the soup. You got to figure out what works for you. But if you can find a way to set aside 20 minutes, 30 minutes a day, or maybe two 20-minute, 30-minute sessions, I think that, I mean, I personally, when I'm doing those things, because I still totally get into these funks where I like just don't want to practice, and I don't, and I just get sad and like anxious and tangled. But if you do those things, probably get yourself feeling like a lot better. Um, I don't know if I said everything that I set out to, but I'm sure the video is quite long now. So I think that'll be enough. If you are a Metro Detroiter and you want to come do some of these practices with me and my friends, we meet at Passenger Recovery on Wednesday nights at 7 p.m., and you would be very welcome. Thanks. Bye.